Hi everyone. So today we're talking about buzz rolls and how you can make decisions, informed decisions, and improve your buzz roll sound. So when a composer writes a buzz roll for any percussion instrument, but almost always snare drum, they're asking for a note to be sustained. So what they want is the snare drum sound held and sustained. So for a wind player, that might be pretty easy. All they've got to do is start the note, start the air movement, and then sustain the air movement. Ta. Okay? So all there was one rhythm or event, that wind player going, and then the air support had to be maintained, and that was it. Our instruments don't work that way. For me to create a sound in my instrument, I've got to strike it, or in any variety, activate the vibrations. Okay? So that was one event. But that note pretty much went away as soon as I started it, right? Was that a whole note? Was that a quarter note? Was that a 30-second note? I don't know. My instrument doesn't sustain notes like that. So, to get my job done, to get my paycheck as percussionist number one, I need to make sure I play this buzz roll in a sustained fashion that's going to emulate or achieve what the composer's asking for, right? So to do that, I look at the context, what tempo we're dealing with, what dynamic we're dealing with, the style we're playing in, and then also other considerations like is it written for a snare drum? Is it written for a different percussion instrument? And all those things. And those are the things I need to look at to decide what to do to play the best buzz roll, okay? So I know this seems like a lot, however, it's a pretty simple process. So you can see right here, I've got a whole note with buzz markings over it tied to a quarter note cutoff. One measure long of buzz, right? So I look at the tempo, I'm going to look at the dynamic, and I'm going to look at the style we're playing in. So let's just assume, basic, we're starting at 100 beats a minute, okay? So I've got a whole note with buzz that's tied to a quarter note, right? So I need to figure out what subdivision I use to make that sound most smooth, right? Like that wind player, I need it to sound just like that, just as smooth. Buzz, okay? Let's start with eighth notes. So here's what eighth notes buzzed, or an eighth note interpretation of that first rhythm would sound like. Ready, and not very attractive. You got the job done, but it's very obvious there's a lot of excess sound. It sounds like I'm playing eighth notes, except I'm buzzing them. So that's not going to work. So let's go to a subdivision with more notes in it. Let's try triplets. Here's what that sounds like. Pretty close to the last one. Let's try it again. Okay. So again, too choppy. I'm getting more rhythm than I am buzz. And buzz is what's most important. So let's try the next one, 16 notes. I think it's a lot closer. Listen. Okay. So that was a lot closer. That was probably what I refer to as the sweet spot. So you'll find that the sweet spot, or where it's the equal amount of notes per, the equal amount of buzzes for the duration of the note. So it's not too hard on your hands, you're not playing so many notes, and you're still getting that smooth sound. That's the sweet spot. So I'd say the sweet spot for that was 16 notes at 100 beats a minute. Listen again. And. Okay? The rhythm is just fast enough to make it sound smooth, but slow enough to not make it sound busy. And now let me show you why. Here's going, again, further on to another subdivision that has too many notes. This will be 6 doublets. Way too busy, and that's almost hard to play. So hopefully that shows you why, where and how and why there's a sweet spot. There's either, you've got to have not too little notes because then it'll sound choppy, and not too many notes in the subdivision because then it'll sound way too busy. You've got to find that sweet spot. So that sweet spot changes. So let's try this again, but at 70 beats a minute or so, a much slower tempo. This is 68. So let's try eighth notes first. Here's tempo. Eighth notes, and yeah, obviously not gonna work. Let's try triplets. Obviously not gonna work. Let's try 16th notes, and closer, but still pretty ugly. Now let's go again, continuing further down to a subdivision with more notes, sextuplets. Listen, and yeah, I like that better. And okay, so prior at 100 beats a minute, sextuplets were way too busy. Now we're at 68 beats a minute, and sextuplets are a lot closer to the sweet spot. Let's push this another one further down to show you how that sweet spot can go too far, okay? So beyond these sextuplets, we might go to 30-second notes. So that'd be 8 pulses or 8 hand motions per quarter note. And for a whole bar of that, that's 32 notes for a bar of buzz roll. So listen to that. It's hard to do. Try it again. And right, so that one was too busy for 68. 30-second notes was a little bit busy for 68. So hopefully you can see what I'm talking about with that sweet spot. It changes depending on the subdivision you use and the tempo you're working with. So let's go the other direction. That was 68. We've done 100. We've done 68. Let's go higher. Let's go to 150. Here's 150. So let's work on the same thing and find the sweet spot for 150. So I'll try eighth notes. Here's 1, 2, ready, and. Bit choppy. Let's try triplets. I like that one. Okay. I'd say the triplets is a sweet spot, but let's push it further. Let's see if the other subdivisions are too much. So your 16th note. Okay. So 16 notes are a little bit busy. I'd stop at triplets. Let's hear the sextuplets if I can even do them. I don't know if I can do them. I can't do them. So hopefully this will show you how to find that sweet spot. Now let's talk about one last thing real quickly, is buzz rolls in rhythms. So now we have a little bit more to consider. We have those prior considerations like tempo, dynamic, what they're asking for, and then on what instruments, X, Y, Z. Now we've got to think about our job and making sure we're playing rhythms correctly on top of all those other things we already had going on. So with those held out buzz notes, you have a little less to worry about concerning sticking. Odds are you're going to play that buzz roll and come off it and not have to jump and immediately play new rhythms or play something different. So the sticking and the subdivision you pick isn't as imperative, yet still imperative, okay? However, with these eighth notes and with differing rhythms, you've got to start thinking about, because those buzz rolls are so much shorter, these are only eighth note buzzes, hopefully you can see, I need to be considering what's next, okay? And that means that subdivision I pick, whatever subdivision I pick, that sticking that comes along with it needs to be viable for what's on the page, okay? So you can't just say, oh, well, I played whatever here. Let's say we were playing this whole top line together in one phrase. Well, let's say I played 60 notes here. Are 60 notes going to work for these eighth notes too? Here's the thing. Typically, this does work. So let's read this top line, all of it, at 100 beats a minute. So we agreed at 100 beats a minute, 16 notes were the best subdivision. Let's go to that. So I played the whole note as 16 note subdivision. Here it is. Now, when I'm playing these phrases, I gotta apply that same sticking, that subdivision I used, to these buzzes, okay? So now let's work backwards. I decided a 16 note subdivision worked for the whole note. Here's what that skeleton sounds like. So when I use the word skeleton, that means I'm gonna play the subdivision without the articulation, which means without the buzz, okay? So here's that skeleton with 60 notes. And, right? And. Okay? So now let me apply that same concept to these rhythms. So I'll play the skeleton first. I picked a 60-note subdivision, so I'm going to play a 60-note skeleton. Here's a skeleton version of this. Ready? And. Now here's with buzzes put in. Okay? So here's the entire 3 bars right here on the top line. Here's all that was a 60-note interpretation of the buzz rolls. Ready? And. 2. Ready? And. 1, 2, again, go. 2. Okay? So I got the job done. I maintained the same interpretation across the bar, across the system. But in certain situations, you might try different things. So for this, I might add emphasis to that buzz on that 8th note, or for inflection, I might change that subdivision. So I might do 3 16-note triplets, so half a sextuplet. So that, okay? I would use those 3 notes for that buzz roll. So listen to that variation. I'll play the skeleton then with the buzz. So here's the skeleton with the sextuplet variation. 2, ready, and. Okay, now with buzzes. Okay? So you can see how the subdivision I pick not only changes the inflection, but also the sticking, and then the smoothness of your roll, okay? There's one last thing I want to add. There's this quote I love. It goes, and I don't know who said it to who, but Buddy Rich said it to Papa Joe Jones, and he goes, that man, his buzz roll sounded like someone pouring hot fudge over marble. Next time you're practicing your buzz rolls, think about making them sound like hot fudge pouring over marble. That's smooth. Have fun. Use a metronome.